Assalamu alaikum. Many other Americans have Muslims in their families or have lived in a Muslim majority country. I know because I am one of them. But my father came from a Kenyan family that includes generations of Muslims. As a boy, I spent several years in Indonesia and heard the call of the azan at the break of dawn.
You are absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith.
Lots of ups, lots of downs, except for my approval ratings, which have just gone down. But that's politics. It doesn't bother me. Besides, I happen to know that my approval ratings are still very high in the country of my birth.
We all know that our country's journey toward equality is not finished yet. We know it right here in this room. It's been 5 years since Lawrence versus Texas and 39 years since Stonewall, but still, we've got work to do before we achieve equality in the LGBT community. He's also spoken out against the stigma surrounding HIV testing, which is still plaguing so many of our communities, which you all know, a lot of that is due to homophobia. Barack has led by example. When we took our trip to Africa and visited his home country in Kenya, we took a public HIV test for the very point of showing folks in Kenya that there is nothing to be embarrassed about in getting tested. And we did it as a couple. And he said something very simple. He said, all too often we settle for the world as it is because we think it's the best that we can do, even if when it doesn't reflect our values and aspirations as a nation. We all have felt that. It won't change. We can't do anything any differently. This is the best we can do. We're blessed. Maybe we shouldn't ask for more. We've all said that at some point in time in our lives. But Barack reminded us on that day that we also know what the world should look like. And I'm here because I know I've lived with this man for 20 years. And I say this all the time. He has not let me down once. He has spent his entire life trying to build the career based on that struggle. Barack has led by example. When we took our trip to Africa and visited his home country in Kenya,
I had visited Africa in a very personal capacity. It was a pretty big production and much bigger than I expected.
The best thing is that he is a Kenyan and he came back home. No matter how rich he is, no matter the state he's in, came back home to see us.
We want the world to view Obama as the son of Africa who has made a name in the U.S. government.
Even the neighbors are more or less related to the Senator Barack Obama.
And I know Mwaso Kenyans will be so uplifted because he's originally from Kenya.
They are Muslims, like Barack's father was.
The name of the son is Barack Obama.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. Hear, O Israel, hear. Hear, O Israel, these words which I command thee, this day shall be within thine heart. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, hear. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. Hear, O Israel, hear. Hear, O Israel, these words which I command thee, this day shall be within thine heart. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel.
Assalamu alaikum. Many other Americans have Muslims in their families or have lived in a Muslim majority country. I know because I am one of them.
You're absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
We do not consider ourselves a Christian nation.
The United States has been enriched by Muslim Americans. Since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States. Islam has always been a part of America's story. There is a mosque in every state in our union, and over 1,200 mosques within our borders.
one of the points I want to make is that if you actually took the number of Muslims Americans, we'd be one of the largest Muslim countries in the world.
Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America.
Presidential candidate Barack Obama is trying to change political fashion. He gave a speech in Iowa City today, and he wasn't wearing an American flag pin. Those pins have become synonymous with politicians since 9/11. Obama says he doesn't like how the pin has come to represent patriotism in America.
I won't wear that pin on my chest.
It's a little weird, Alan, that in the middle of the campaign, the guy takes off the American flag that most people wear because they're proud of their country.
Let me speak as clearly and as plainly as I can. America is not and never will be at war with Islam.
Performer hasn't been provided with a script. As a matter of fact, I have been permitted to choose my own words and discuss my own ideas regarding the choice that we face in the next few weeks. I have spent most of my life as a Democrat. I recently have seen fit to follow another course.
The defense policy of the United States is based on a simple premise. The United States does not start fights. We will never be an aggressor.
As for the peace that we would preserve, I wonder who among us would like to approach the wife or mother whose husband or son has died in South Vietnam and ask them if they think this is a peace that should be maintained indefinitely. There can be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I must protect and preserve freedom here, or it will not be passed on to our children, and it will disappear everywhere in the world.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose.
We, the people. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we the people tell the government what it is allowed to do. This administration in Washington has betrayed the working men and women of this country. I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts. A recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose yours. And recovery is when President of the United States loses his.
Someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. The martyrs of history were not fools. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said, if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. One side in this campaign has been telling us that the issues of this election are the maintenance of peace and prosperity. The line has been used, we've never had it so good. But I have an uncomfortable feeling that this prosperity isn't something on which we can base our hopes for the future.
I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for saving our economy. So our next president has a different job to do, building on the progress that President Obama has made.
No nation in history has ever survived a tax burden that reached a third of its national income. Today, 37 cents out of every dollar earned in this country is the tax collector's share. And yet our government continues to spend $17 million a day more than the government takes in.
When you think about 90%, you don't think that's obviously too high?
No. We haven't balanced our budget 28 out of the last 34 years. We've raised our debt limit 3 times in the last 12 months. And now our national debt is 1.5 times bigger than all the combined debts of all the nations of the world.
Coverage is there. There's no more cuts to make. It's really important that people understand that.
The U.S. debt level is fast approaching $18 trillion. That is well more than $55,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence he told